Welcome to Fiery Discourse, your podcast and media featuring dragonesses, female dinosaurs, and other similar stories and skillies. I'm your host, Len Melnon, and with me are my co-hosts, Angron, Math Machine, The Shark, Jordan, and Striker. Today is our 102nd episode, and we're discussing the 1985 Dungeons and Dragons episode, Cave of the Fairy Dragons. So, let's get things started.
It's magic! I ain't gotta explain shit! It's that time again, folks!
Yep, it certainly is. So, as we mentioned in our previous episode on it, Dungeons and Dragons is still a popular property today, but it was huge in the early 80s, enough to where, of course, it got an animated property based on it. Now, this is actually the second time we are talking about the 1980s Dungeons and Dragons TV show, because we previously talked about the episode The Dragon's Graveyard, which had the character of Tiamat in it, who, let's face it, is probably one of the better dragonesses that we've discussed in the podcast so far in terms of score-wise, because she got a very good score here. So let's see if hopefully the dragonesses in this one do just as well. Oh, Angron, what would you like to say?
Sadly, we do not have Optimus Prime as the villain in this one, but we have someone equally as good. We'll get to him when we get to him.
Yep, or her too. But one thing to note is we have to point out that this is definitely a high fantasy concept, and the reason we know that is because they spell the word fairy with an I-E instead of a Y at the end.
Fairy Fairies! Hide your crackers!
We had to do it. Surprisingly, it took that long actually to do a Mr. Crocker reference. Matt, go ahead.
I don't know what it is. Fairy spelled with an I-E instead of a Y at the end. Always gives me that image of just having the pinky out while sipping tea and talking about fantasy.
Real Tolkien-esque, yep. Oh, go ahead, Chuck.
The phrase "ran fire" comes from as well.
The phrase what?
Ran fires.
Ah.
Yeah, like Ember from the DC Superhero Girls. Yep.
Nice.
Sadly, no Ember here. Well, not that Ember.
Yep, there is an Amber, but not an Ember. Kind of a reversal from that one. Yep. But the episode begins with the group all basically swimming in a stream and enjoying themselves. The interesting thing about this sequence is practically the first shot is a still frame because only one of the characters is actually moving while the rest are basically standing perfectly still, which doesn't feel as weird as it sounds, if that makes any sense. Oh, go ahead, Angron.
All I can say about this moment is be thankful it wasn't Dick making this.
Yeah,
this ain't made cheap, I can tell you that much.
Yeah, or Deke, thankfully. But, go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, this show can do still frames unlike a lot of other 80s show because they put a lot of production quality into making the imagery look really good, making the scenes look really good. Everything about this is very high quality. So even when they do pure still frames, it still looks really, really good.
Exactly. That's because they have such a great animation team behind it. I believe it was Toei that actually did, and they do a fantastic job with this. It really looks amazing, especially compared to other shows in the time period. Like, compared to like some of the stuff Hanna-Barbera were doing at the time, this is just like amazing. Absolutely amazing stuff.
Yeah, seriously, this is the same people who made Dragon Ball, Transformers, Voltron, and One Piece. I did not expect this to disappoint at all.
Yep, that is a great list of shows. Shark, go ahead.
Yeah, you can tell since Dungeons and Dragons was like this big phenomenon back then. They said no, we have to go with a good studio, not something cheap. We have to something that represents the quality and just how big this franchise is.
Yeah.
Yep. Like I say, it proved to be that popular. Like I say, that it still is in the general consensus these days. But like I say, getting back to the actual episode itself, what happens is as the group all enjoy themselves, the dungeon master shows up yet again. The group all leave. Yep, here we go. They all leave the water as Eric asks if the dungeon master has more bad news, but he tells them that he's found a way home from them. The group are all excited by this, so the dungeon master lets out yet another one of his riddles, and I do like how Eric is just so done with this. As soon as the dungeon master starts talking in that, he just instantly walks away. Again, it's a moment that it's really more well written than it should be. Again, speaking to how this time period of animated shows were, this is really high quality. Oh, go ahead, Ingrid.
Like, seriously, at this point, they know there's a catch, and they're just like resigned to their fate, whatever it might be. But at the very least, they're just like, don't give us hope, man. Or at the very least, if you're gonna give us hope, follow through on that shit.
Yep, exactly. Shark, go ahead.
At this point, I don't know if it happened, but I will love a gag where he starts giving his riddles again, and the magician Gizzard God just becomes invisible. Like, nope, I'm out of here.
Yeah, that's. I didn't notice that. That actually was a really good one. Yeah, that is great. But what happens basically is the dungeon master tells them that a giant sacrifice may be required to save a tiny friend. But remember, the smallest deed may yield the biggest reward, and he drops a rock into the water. Eric basically says the only reward he wants is a way home, then he drops a rock in the water. When they all look back, the dungeon master is gone, because again, magic, I ain't gotta explain shit.
Exactly.
Yep, exactly. Basically, all the group is busy getting dressed as Eric walks over to his clothes, fuming at the dungeon master. As he climbs on a rock, it starts to shake and quiver, causing him to basically angrily question if this is one of Presto's tricks. He falls into the water as his friends all laugh at him before... go ahead, Angron, before I reveal what it is.
Ants.
Yep.
I'm patting my legs like in that one show with Danny DeVito. So
nice.
Alternatively, he just found a transportation device for the pioneers.
nice.
That is also true. Yep. First one's our reference, and hopefully not the last. Basically, yeah, as Angron said, the rock breaks open to reveal giant ants as Eric screams, "It's them!" Which, that's a joke that definitely was made for the adults in the room, because Them was a 1950s sci-fi movie about giant ants that actually is pretty good, all things considered, especially for the time period, and apparently the show actually beat me to it to making a reference to a movie from the 1950s, so plus on them.
Nice.
But as Eric is looking under the water for his clothes, sword, and shield, Diane attempts to leap onto one of the ants. She does so before being caught in the mandibles of one. Hank attempts to attack him with his bow before he is caught as well. Bobby basically slams his club to the ground, which causes the ants all to quiver and shake. So, obviously he got fighting techniques from Fang from Dave the Barbarian. The Great Destructor is small in person. Maybe we're bigger in person. And then they get close. No, we're flatter in person.
That, or he got the technique from Hardman from Mega Man 3. Who knows?
That is also true. But the groups all run from the ants as Eric just barely manages to get his outfit on before joining the others. A group comes from off screen telling them to go this way. They wonder who said that as the ants continue to approach them. They run up behind the waterfall and into a nearby cave where Hank and Diane wonder just who said that voice. The voice turns out to come from a very tiny dragoness who has yellow/orange scales and butterfly wings. I guess that means if she ever went to Bikini Bottom, they'd freak out over her.
Yeah, that, and not only is she is also a fairy. Crocker would have a field day with this, or at least a seizure.
Yep, definitely. So, yep, Bobby calls it a baby dragon, but she turns out to be one of the titular fairy dragons. And I will say this right now, their design is absolutely adorable. Like, you could tell the animators really did their best to make these things look reptilian, but also really cute in a way that doesn't feel cloying like other stuff of the 80s, like Popples or Care Bears or stuff like that. These feel legitimately like adorable fantasy fairy tale creatures and that. Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
Funny you should mention that, because like I see these and think two things. One, this would probably be the precursor to Moonstone dragons, who exist in the Fey realm, as well as fairy dragons, or at least they used to. And two, why do I get the feeling these guys would get their own MLP clone show? Like, for real.
If only they did. Oh, Shark, go ahead.
Also, the idea of mixing up fairies and dragons is interesting because usually in fantasy, fairies are these helpful creatures, or dragons are these deadly, dangerous creatures. So they basically mix it what the people consider the goodest good and the evilest evil into one being. Also, they
Pokemon says hi.
Yeah, that too. And yeah, apparently this is actually in Dungeons and Dragons lore, because fairy dragons are part of a thing. They're spelt the more traditional way as fairy with the AE instead of the AR, but that's to be done. And like I say, it is interesting too basically how their color indicates their age. It apparently starts as red and it goes from the color spectrum to violet as they grow older. And they love playing practical jokes on each other, apparently, which neither of which you really see in the episode. But it's nice that they actually tied that into it in a way, that they actually did their research, where they could have just been, screw it, let's make up our own rules. But no, they went by the show. Oh, go ahead and run.
Want to see a show based around these freaking characters, like
Same,
hands down.
same. They easily are they easily are probably one of the best parts of the episode. And again, they feel fleshed out in ways that other characters, like in other shows, like main characters wouldn't, which is really, really amazing. But this particular fairy dragon actually has a famous voice actress because she is voicing none other than Russie Taylor, who's probably best remembered as the voice of Minnie Mouse.
And Martin Prince from The Simpsons, for all you people
That
at
too.
home.
That too. Very interesting double casting choices there. But yeah, apparently she voiced Minnie Mouse starting in the 1980s, and she did all the way up to her death in I believe the 2010s. So God bless her for that. She was an absolute
hell
legend,
yeah.
and she really does a great voice here too, especially considering how this is one of probably her earliest roles. I think this might actually predate her when she got the role as Minnie, believe it or not. So she really does a great job here.
That would be interesting if that were true. That would be hands down interesting.
Yep. Uni, the unicorn, approaches her as she giggles. Presto asks who she is, and she says her name is Amber. She's not Ember, but unfortunately we do not get to see Supergirl trying to buy turkey legs from her. Haha.
Or the blue dragon pretty much going, I said coaching!
Yeah, that too. And basically she knows who Presto is. He asks how, and she says it's from the silly one in the red cloak, as Eric angrily approaches her, calling her a baby dragon. Amber angrily retorts that she's a full-grown fairy dragon, and that he's the one who woke up the giant ants in the first place. Eric asks her what the way out is, but she won't answer to anybody but Presto, and their relationship is very interesting, shall we say.
Yeah, honestly, it's a very neat, interesting concept overall. Like, a wizard and a dragon ultimately like being buddy to the point of possibly being a relationship. That's so much inspiration right there. I'm surprised a lot of people haven't done that in other D&D campaigns or D&D related media.
Definitely. But Presto actually asks her what the way out is as she lands on his shoulder and points out how to get away from the giant ants. Presto thanks her as she giggles again, then she sticks her head inside of his wizard hat before climbing inside of it. Now we said wizard hat, ha ha ha.
All I can think about from that scene is, hi Eslo, except it's a dragon instead of a bird.
Yep, that would be way better if that was the case. If only she was in Minish Cap.
Yeah. Math?
Go ahead, Math.
The way they show Presto and Amber together is very adorable. Just
yes.
It's really sweet how they, in such a small time, show that they have Amber really likes Presto like this.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, the shot of her curled up inside of Presto's hat and her giggling at it is just such a cute moment. And you're going to be hearing that a lot in this episode, because these dragons are definitely legitimately adorable. And that was the intent. And they made them adorable, but they're not cloying. It doesn't feel, again, like Care Bears or Popples or even like in some way like the Ewoks cartoon and that. They feel more natural, if that makes sense. Oh,
yes.
Go ahead, Chuck.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if this was a Mario game, her getting into a hat would have given him some sort of power.
Nice.
That would have been amazing if it was. But as he runs up to catch the group, Eric wonders if they are lost enough to be going home, but Diane remarks that the Dungeon Master said, when all seems lost. Hank sees the end of the tunnel, and as Eric and Bobby run out before seeing another dragon approach. This one, which is another fairy dragon, is green scaled and is voiced by Frank Welker, who also voiced Tiamat, as well as, let's be honest, he's probably been on this show at least 70 times already, and we only have over 100 episodes. He's probably in more than 50%, maybe even more than 70%. That is how prolific this guy is.
I hear his voice in this particular episode, and I think freaking Scat from Dink the Little Dinosaur, which we will cover later, but I just can't help but make that connection every time I hear it.
Yep. Basically, this dragon tells Amber that their ruler, Queen Casimira, has been kidnapped by King Viren. Oh, go ahead, Matt.
With me, if you've ever seen Transformers Beast Wars, I hear Waspinator as the style voice he's doing.
Nice. Also, like, I hear Viren and I think of the Dragon Prince, which we'll also cover. But yeah, it's kind of funny. But once we get to his voice in a little bit, it'll definitely be a 180.
Yep, he'll definitely do another familiar voice in a little bit. What happens is the dragon tells Amber that their ruler, Queen Casimira, has been kidnapped by King Viren. Amber says that she has to help her queen as the two dragons fly out, with Hank saying that they're going to help them as well. The group make it outside as the two dragons just easily fly up the side of the mountain. Eric says, "Don't tell me," as Hank says that they'll climb up the mountain, and Eric, of course, retorts, "I said, don't tell me," in that old joke, you know.
Yeah. Honestly, if this were the Super Mario Bros. Super Show, this would definitely be an interesting episode with Fairy Dragons fighting against Bowser, who is a dragon in of himself.
Would have been very interesting. Oh, let's see. Go. Yep. What happens next then? We cut to the group making their way up the mountain to a cave, and it is interesting how they just cut out the journey, like they know what we're here for. And again, this is a 22-minute episode, so they had time for it, but I do like how they give us so much of the fairy dragons. That's why they feel like actual characters, and we'll get to more of them in a little bit. But what happens in the cave, a bunch of fairy dragons are just flying around in a loop formation. One of them flies out and screams about humans, and this one is also voiced by Frank Welker. And if you know basically what this voice is, he's basically doing his Slimer impression.
Nice.
If only well, good thing for Fearless, Eric does not say, "Oh, come on, cut it out." He'd hate this episode then, but thankfully that does not happen here.
He slimed me, or at least he didn't slime me.
That too. But the blue dragon basically swipes at Eric before Amber shows up, saying that the humans are here to help. The dragon goes inside to help the others as Presto nearly falls off the cliff. In a pretty stupid way, because he's just standing near the edge. It's like, what did you think would happen, you know?
Nice.
But Sheila and Amber attempt to hold him up, but he's still slipping. Hank fires 2 arrows, which fly to the cliff face and hold up Presto until he can climb back up. Presto thanks Amber, despite Hank being the one who really saved him from this, and also, another thing, Hank, too OP, please nerf.
Someone rolled an accurate.
His arrows can do literally anything, like anything. It's like, why do you need half the guys here at all, basically?
Meanwhile, Vex with her Ventress bow is just like, what the bloody hell?
Yeah, that's it. It's just, good.
Already said it.
Oh, good. But what happens then is the group go inside the cave as Amber tells all the other fairy dragons that these humans are her friends and will help them. All of the group basically pledged to help except for Eric, who once again whines about wanting to go home when they're all done. And the reason Eric is written like this, I think, if I remember correctly, was because of this 80s push of like, there had to be like a complainer character, but he always had to be like in the wrong, and Garfield would actually make fun of this with the Buddy Bears, believe it or not.
Huh.
I remember that. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that was basically...
that was like the whole Steve that, you have to agree to everything, or...
Yeah, that basically was the rise of that show, making fun of the limitations on children's animation, that you had to have a character like Eric in a lot of the shows, which, again, it makes sense, but at the same time, Eric is one of the most relatable characters in a way, so if they were trying to say, oh, it's not good to complain about situations, it backfired, at least in this case.
Oh, hell yeah. Also, where are the Buddy Bears? We all think you're along, and if you have an opinion different than ours, then that means you are wrong. I think that's the whole song, but anyways.
Go ahead, Matt.
Because we're in the 3rd season of the show, they ended up making Eric relatable to a point where he's somewhat the audience surrogate. So in an ironic sense, by him being the complainer and the negative one, he kind of became the audience character of like, okay, I get what the plot is here. Let's move on.
We're done with this isekai.
Exactly. But what happens then is Amber tells them all that King Viren wants all of the treasure of the Fairy Dragons in exchange for their queen, but Diane and Hank says that they'll get her back no matter what. Hank asks where she is as Amber says that she'll show them, then embraces Presto again, another cute moment. We cut to the group on a cliff, overlooking a dark and foreboding castle, which sadly, is not them going into Mordor, because one does not simply walk into Mordor.
Or Bowser's Castle, because that would be too easy, and they'd have to fight a lot of Koopas and Goombas.
You can go kart into it, though.
That is true.
That is true.
That is true. Even though there is a Thwomp in prison, so you gotta watch out for that guy.
Yeah. Nice.
So, yep. We got to the group waiting in the bushes before Hank asks if everyone is ready to start their plan. The plan begins with Sheila turning herself invisible as she runs across the drawbridge, scaring a horse and cart and causing it to run away. While the guards are all distracted, she turns herself visible yet again and has the rest of the group join her. The party all make it to the dungeon while Eric and Uni wait outside. And again, the animation here looks really, really good. It's so like vibrant and fluid in ways that, again, I imagine for like 82 Saturday morning, this had to be mind-blowing compared to like the 17th iteration of Scooby-Doo in that.
I'll bet.
But speaking of Scooby-Doo, when they're all in the dungeon, the group decides to split up in various directions, with Bobby deciding to go back to the staircase to watch for anyone. Oh, go ahead, Angron.
When will they learn you never split the party? Not in horror, not in D&D, and not here.
And those
go
who
ahead, Chuck.
split off have to be given motivation with a dragon snack.
Would you do it for dragon snack, Sim?
Classic. That's great. So, what happens basically is that eventually Hank finds Queen Kismera in a large golden bird cage. Kismera is a light lavender scaled fairy dragon. She wears like a golden amulet and she has kind of like a interesting frond like thing in her forehead. And out of all the fairy dragons, I think she probably looks the best. Amber is adorable, don't get me wrong, and they all look really good, but something about Queen Kismera is so regal looking in a way that, again, feels intended.
I'm kind of the opposite to that. Like, I still love the character very much. She's useful, she's kind, and she very much helps the party. Problem is the lips. I know we covered that with Dulcie and the Dragon Queen in freaking Sonic's at AM. But here, it definitely feels a lot more uncanny, especially with, like, the weird eyes and the small black pupil.
To me, I didn't see that, but I can kind of see where you're coming from there.
Yeah,
Hank,
I don't
what's
hate
the
it. I don't hate it, but it's definitely a little jarring, even for me.
Yeah, I can kind of see why. But Hank whistles for all the others to arrive as all of them, including Bobby, show up. Amber is enraged at them doing such a thing to their queen as Bobby tries to smash the cage with his club, only to find it isn't working. Hank and the others find that their weapons are also not working as King Varen shows up and proclaims that basically his wizard built this dungeon to be magic-proof. Varen calls the...
Sorry.
So go. No, continue. It's alright, I know what you're going to say.
Snooping as usual, I see. Sorry for the voice crack, but yeah.
All good.
Basically Eggman, but as a Viking.
Yeah. And here's a weird thing, too. I could not confirm or deny that it is Long John Baldry doing the voice, because this is sort of an era where voice casts, aside from like the main characters, it just says voices provided by, then a list of the names. So, and IMDb is of no help. So, I do not know who is voicing King Varen here, because they don't say so in the credits, and they don't say so on any website I looked up. So, kind of a shame.
It could be Frank Welker, but it could very well be that guy. But you never know.
Yep. But Varen basically says that they are prisoners as well, and he throws Eric and Uni in the cell before slamming it shut. Amber manages to fly out before it slams shut as Eric demands to make a phone call. And one thing that's interesting is, this is the part where, of course, it cuts to commercial on like a broadcast television thing, and the shot of the cell door imposing over them is honestly one of the best looking scenes of the episode. Like, this one shot is almost unnecessarily detailed. Like it's just a simple cell door, and yet it looks so good in ways that you really wouldn't think of it. Go ahead, Matt.
A thing focusing on D&D going into unnecessary details. Gee, how fitting.
Nice. But what happens is we cut to the group all up. Go ahead, Chuck.
Also, right now they're in a dungeon with a dragon, so the prophecy came true.
They finally did it. They finally did it. But we then cut back to the group all looking for Amber after they all realize she's not hiding in Presto's hat, calling out for her. Amber, it turns out, is outside the door and hovers by the bars, telling them that she escaped before the door closed and flies off to get help. Eric basically sits down and laments about what happened with the dungeon master and how they're never going to get home. Hank uses his bow to pick the lock of Queen Casmira's cage, as she asks if they're also looking for a home. And it's here we get the backstory, which is really, really interesting, because Hank asks if that cave in the mountains is the Fairy Dragon's home, to which she denies it. Basically, what happens is they once lived in a misty forest, but all of a sudden a volcano erupted and destroyed it. They intended to live at the forest at the edge of the world, but they've been traveling there for generations and they're only living in the cage temporarily. Basically, Hank mentions that this realm is their temporary home, as Eric lets another sarcastic remark yet again. Unfortunately, they're not at the ice cream bar at the end of the world, because then they could encounter Patrick Not Star.
Patrick Not Star.
Yeah.
Classic.
Also, like on that note, like it sounds like before they tried sojourning to the forest at the end of the world, they were spending time in the slumbering wells from Galar.
That could be true. So, what happens basically is they've been traveling there for generations. They're only living in the caves temporarily in that. She basically then hopes that the children can find a way back to their home, as Sheila asks what happened to Amber. Casmira says that Amber will be alright and find help wherever she can. Unfortunately, we then cut to Amber flying out of the castle before immediately being spotted by two guards who just chase her into the forest. It's like she was out there for maybe like 2 seconds and automatically she nearly gets captured.
Someone rolled on that one on stealth.
Yeah.
That too. She attempts to evade them before saying that she will return to the caves for more help. We then come back to Presto, who basically is lamenting that his magical hat does not work in the room, before Hank notes that it'll work outside of the room, which then leads to them getting out of this in a moment that's both silly and somehow awesome at the same time, because Presto just holds his hat outside of the bars and he casts a spell to make the door disappear. And I think it would disappear just like, poof, no more door. But apparently how it does it, it summons termites that all eat the wooden door. Which is so stupid and yet so clever at the same time that it's like, okay, I give you props, writers. You definitely have a lot of creativity in your way.
Absolutely. Also, the pull line from Wizards of Waverly Place. Knock, knock, who's there? A door who? A door that's been eaten by termites. If you know, you know.
Nice. Math, go ahead.
This might be the most effective Presto's ever been in the show. Normally his spells either do absolutely nothing or backfire, and here, while not being completely what he wants, they're working as intended.
Nice.
It's weird.
It's like he's finally rolling higher scores or something as a wizard.
It might be because, the concern this is near the end of the show's run, it might have been character development in a way. Go ahead, Shark.
Yep.
Yeah, his hat is like Wander's hat. It doesn't give you what you want, it gives you what you need.
That too. If only Sylvia was here. And we'll be talking about her later on, so that'll be fun.
Nice.
But we then cut to Amber panting in a tree as the guards see her and continue to chase her. We then suddenly, randomly, cut back to the group as they're continuing to run out of the dungeon, then immediately back to the two guards. And one of the two guards' designs here, he looks like one of the old guys from the Muppet Show.
Nice.
Yeah, if only his partner was here, then we could have made a lot of Statler and Waldorf jokes, but sadly the other guy just looks like a generic knight type. So, definitely an interesting character design there, let's say.
Yep.
But the guard berates his partner about losing Amber before he remarks that he lost her too. The guards all just storm back off to their castle. We then come back to the group yet again as Eric again complains that there's no way out of there. But then we see that Casmira is probably more adept at magic than even Presto is, as she casts a spell instantly putting all of the guards to sleep. So apparently she is friends with the three good fairies from Sleeping Beauty. Who knew?
That, or basically Jigglypuff was nearby and sung at an octave so silent that only the guards could hear her.
That too.
Pull out your black markers.
That too. That too. So, what happens is Sheila turns herself invisible, as Eric and Hank put on the guards' cloaks, claiming to the others that they're taking the prisoners into the forest, and for some reason, all the other guards are like, yeah, okay, you do that.
Yeah, that's pretty funny.
Yeah, it is like they have no resistance, like they immediately let them pass, and that is so funny. But of course, Amber unfortunately screws things up yet again because they see her going back into the cave and they go to tell King Varen. We cut to Amber telling all the other fairy dragons that their magic will not work in the dungeon, only for Presto to tell them that they escaped already, as in another really sweet moment, Amber's just so overjoyed at seeing them again.
Yeah,
And especially
nice.
Presto in a way, and the way that they embrace again is really, really adorable, and it makes me wonder if this episode was written earlier in the show's runtime, if Amber would have been like a permanent part of like the party for some reason.
That would be so awesome if she
Would
was.
have
Because
been.
honestly, I ship it.
Nice. But Queen Kismira says without their help, she would still be imprisoned, and that all of the fairy dragons owe them gratitude and thanks. She has something to show them and takes them into a very deep part of the cavern. It turns out to be a room that's filled top to bottom with treasure, as Kismira tells them to take anything that they want. Hank
Good.
basically... Oh, go ahead, sorry.
This is basically the equivalent of helping Zubea in Dragon Prince, and her being so overjoyed by this, she's like, take anything from my sacred vault of treasures that probably should be there, but they're probably in better hands with you. And I'm just like, that is a high level of trust. Good lordy. I love this episode. Can you tell?
I do too. Like I said, this one was really, really a fun one. You know, again, I consider this is like the second to last one. You think that this would be the episode where they really start winding down with it, but no, it's just as good as the rest thing. Oh, go ahead,
Yes.
I also appreciate that they understood the rule of dragons. Have dragon, will hoard.
Matt.
Nice.
Even the tiny dragons like that.
Yes, even the kobolds.
Yeah. But it turns out that Hank says, oh no, we don't need any treasure, as Eric is basically guilted into saying he doesn't want treasure either, even as he's trying to take some for himself.
Oh my god.
Yep.
No, I'm totally good on the treasure. Stuffs his sack full of gold, jewels, and whatever mystic items are in there.
I mean, it could come in handy when they finally get back home, if they ever did.
Yeah.
Yep. The group wonder where Presto is as we cut to him and Amber. She's basically teaching him how to levitate a rock on a string as Eric arrives sarcastically says, oh, that's going to be really useful, which, okay, Eric, a lot of this stuff we can understand, but levitation is a legit power. Let's be real.
Yeah, calling it now, that was the group leveling up, and he just got a very unique either one-stage spell or cantrip that will absolutely help them out.
Yep, exactly. Presto gives the floating rock to Kasmira as she thanks him before asking where they will go. Before they can answer, a fairy dragon arrives and tells them that the army is attacking and that they found the cave. The soldiers instantly just burst in through the wall and begin chasing them. Eric uses his shield to try and hold them off, but nothing doing. It's here where Hank probably has the dumbest moment of the episode, believe it or not, because he makes a barrier to stop the knights, but what Hank does is he made the barrier out of glass that these guards holding clubs easily smash through in like 2 seconds. It's like you couldn't make it, I don't know, I have like concrete or steel or something a little bit more protected than just glass.
Yeah, also, I see this and I'm just like, I am Dr. Viren, your new genius overlord. Oh,
Nice.
What a joke.
Great.
That'd be awesome.
If only it did. But the group were basically chased throughout the cave before making it back into the treasure room. Eric laments that the dungeon master is wrong and that they are at the moment when there's no hope. Just then, this magic mirror that was in the room suddenly turns into the amusement park they first entered into. Eric leans in and falls through the mirror. He mentions that he can go through it and that they can all go through. However, the door is about to be broken down by all the knights, as Hank has the mirror changed to being the Fairy Dragons' forest. He basically has them go in and he gives them all the treasure. However, there is a major animation error here that somehow really actually enhances this moment, because Hank changes the magic mirror from the amusement park to the Fairy Dragons' forest, But when Kazmira and the others go in, it's the amusement park again. So it's like the fairy dragons went to the human world, which, let's face it, would be a huge improvement.
Yeah, that would be hilarious, both in terms of them getting chipped and having the fairy dragons go to the human realm, and for just the fact that there are now dragons in their human world canonically or
Yep.
such. That's honestly hilarious. Every time I see it, I get it. It gets a chuckle out of me.
Same,
That's
same.
awesome. Like, there's a lot of animation errors, but that one is the crowning. That is the crowning achievement of that episode.
Yeah. It's one that actually, again, works to the show's favor, and in a way that, again, is just amazing. Oh, go ahead, Matt.
I'm actually surprised that no one saw that animation error and was like, well, time to make plushes.
Yeah. Oh, if only they did. If only they did. Let's say it this way. It'd be a better time with fairies at an amusement park than what happened with Timmy at Adrenaline Land.
Oh gosh.
Then it should end with all the fairy dragons in Escalator Land. When do we get to the ride? This is the ride! Yippee! Oh, classic.
Oh my gosh.
Yep.
Good times.
Yep, good times. But Amber says goodbye to Presto. She actually kisses him on the cheek again in a really nice moment before going in last. The guards break in as Eric basically smashes the mirror, shocking all of the guards. But we then cut to them leading the group to King Varen. Varen demands to know where the treasure is, but Diane says that he will never find it. Oh, go ahead, Chuck.
Yeah, this moment in which they basically sacrifice their way home to save others, it makes me think a lot of Samurai Jack, because that was something he will do very often.
Oh, definitely. Go ahead, Matt.
What I really like about that scene is it was Eric, the guy who's been complaining the entire time, without a second thought, without coaxing, without anything. He just instantly smashes the damn mirror.
Yeah.
Yep, to save their friends. Like he was the one who learned the lesson. And again, it doesn't feel forced in ways that like other shows like The Time would make it like so forced in that Eric is the one who like learns the lesson, and it's not like done out of, oh, Eric, will you ever learn? It's not like that, which again, I give him huge props, especially for the early 80s.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Funny you mentioned Samurai Jack, actually, because like these guys have been stuck in the D&D realm for Lord only knows how long. They're referenced in many other media, D&D, Honor Among Thieves especially, and it makes me think, dear Lord, these guys are basically the Samurai Jack of the D&D universe. It's pretty comedically poetic in a way.
Yeah, I definitely can see that, Yeah, definitely the connection with that and Samurai Jack. I wonder, in a way, if it was like a somewhat inspiration for it, but we'll have to see about that. What happens is basically Varen has the group arrested as Presto catches a spell that makes them all helplessly float in the sky, so that rock spell did come in handy.
Covering for the win!
Yep, it came full circle there. Eric reminds that the spell isn't useless after all, as we then get another too shocking twist, because the one who's complaining about not going home and is lamenting it is Bobby, who, as the youngest of the group, it makes a lot more sense,
Seriously, in an earlier episode where they met Tiamat and fought Venture or whatever, he legit was like at his lowest point. He was legit like about to burst into tears. It like seeing him say this right here, honestly, yeah, full circle on that.
Yeah.
Feeling.
But and the other thing is that Eric is the one who comforts Bobby, not Hank, not any of the others. But no, Eric is the one who actually shows concern to Bobby in that. He basically tells him that they're still not any further from home than they were before, and that if they didn't help any of their little friends, who would they help? And I feel like how Bobby gets a little offended by being called little on that.
Oh my gosh. Meanwhile, the Fairy Dragons are just like...
Yep.
Possibly
they're having fun in the amusement park, that's all. Yeah. Yep. They're having a good time. They got treasure. They got, adorableness, If only they did more with it, but sadly they did not. The episode ends with the Dungeon Master giving another one of his cryptic stuff as he says, home is a reflection of the heart, a reflection that you are beginning to understand, even though we're 3 seasons in, but you do you. And yep, go ahead, Shark.
Yeah, it can't be a literal home because in the show they never return home.
Yep, and it's just yep. And this was actually the second to last episode of the show, and the final episode never answered the question of whether or not they actually return home. But unlike Quantum Leap, we actually did get some closure there, as a fan episode was made years later, like years and years later, and they actually got, I think, Diane's voice actress back for it, which is pretty cool. It served as the quote-unquote real finale, which thankfully has a lot better production qualities than SpongeBob and Patrick's real Mermaid Man movie.
Oh my gosh.
Yep.
Check that out, honestly. It sounds cool.
Yeah, I should too. But like I say, the characters would actually make a cameo in the D&D movie from a couple of years ago. Sadly, we cannot talk about that because Chimber Chod is a male and not a female. If he was, he would get a perfect score on the Dragoness Scale. I'm sorry. Just the absolute unit alone.
I agree. I absolutely agree.
He was the reason why I even went to see the Dungeons and Dragons movie like
True.
from a few years ago.
If only more people did, because that movie deserved so much better.
It did.
Yep. And the show also was apparently extremely popular in Brazil. Like,
Nice.
It aired for like over 20 years there. It got referenced in like car commercials and things like that. And I believe that they actually made like a stop motion episode of it, believe it or not, for Brazilian audiences. So between that and Woody Woodpecker, they got pretty good taste.
Not gonna lie, hearing that, that's pretty impressive. Also, it makes me think that Jose Carioca is secretly a D&D fanatic.
Yeah. That would be a crossover that would be good to see. Let's put it that way.
Or Blue and Jewel too. Or Blue in particular. He is the
He
geek of the
definitely
group.
would. He definitely would. Of course, 150%.
Yes.
So what happened? Basically, I really enjoyed this show. Like I said, I really have to admit that I never saw the show before actually doing this podcast, and after doing it, I'm really glad to have watched it because, again, it really, absolutely holds up. Not just at the time period, but now. Is it like perfect? No, but I believe for basically the time period, especially considering this is like sanitized early 80s television animation in like the US, this is really, really good, you know?
Yes.
It's not on the same scale as something like, say, Heidi or like things like that, but this is really, really good. You know, and again, compared to like some of the stuff other companies like Hanna-Barbera or like Filmation were doing at the time, this thing looks like the Disney Renaissance level compared to that as well.
Yeah, I absolutely admit I did not hear very good things about this show, though I generally heard them from people who weren't into D&D. But watching this is absolutely candy-coated D&D crack. Like, I watched this and I did not get disappointed at any point. Like, both this and the Tiamat episode were amazing. I might check out the full series as a whole, especially the episodes like that weren't official, quote unquote.
Yeah, I definitely can see that. But like I said, the thing that's interesting is, like I say, it is a really, really well done show, and I kind of wish it was more well known because it is so better off than a lot of the other stuff in the time period. And that's going to kind of tie into our question of the week, which is, what is your favorite 80s fantasy cartoons?
Nice.
I'll go first. And mine is probably going to be one that I imagine some of the others are also going to say, you guys. But mine's pretty obvious. It's going to be Thundercats. Because, I mean, right, number one, the animation is really, really, really good. Like, I mean, you had Rankin Bass. That alone makes it better than He-Man because Filmation infamously was a bargain basement studio. Like, apparently at one point they were just photocopying the model sheets for, like, animation there, which is crazy. But yeah,
Nice.
again, by the Thundercats, like, Rankin Bass really, really put their all into it. And the setting, yes, it's still a little 80s in that. It does have, like, the whole toyetic stuff with Snarf and that. And yeah, it's not perfect, but it is a show that I think would have continued to stick around in the public eye if it wasn't for the absolute thing that was Thundercats Roar, which, while not being as ear-bleedingly bad as everyone on the internet said, it's still not good because it's trying to do the whole Teen Titans Go thing with, oh, look at this beloved property that we're being so irreverent with. Ain't that neat? But getting back to the original, though, it has such a more dramatic thing to it that, again, a lot of cartoons at the time, I think, didn't. It's no, like, Last Unicorn or anything. Let's put it that way. It's not that. It's not their versions of Hobbit or Return of the King, both of which I wish could count for this thing, but I meant cartoons and TV shows, not movies. But if I could, definitely Last Unicorn would be on there, and probably Return of the King. But regardless, it's a show that really holds up. The voice acting is great. Basically the world building, that is just so great with them. And again, it's a shame what happened with Rankin Bass, that they just couldn't cut it, I guess, and they just I don't even think they lived through the 80s, believe it or not. I think they just collapsed after Thundercats. And it's a shame because these guys have so much more to offer than what most people know them for, which is the stop motion Christmas specials, which, keep in mind, they're great. They're great, don't get me wrong, but man, I wish more people knew about this, because this is a show that even the backgrounds are so detailed in a way that, again, it makes it feel alive. And that's what I give this show all the credit for, is it feels alive, like the Dungeons and Dragons show, believe it or not.
Yeah, a hot take on Thundercats Roar. I think it's actually better than Teen Titans Go. I mean, I absolutely love the Doom Patrol episodes. I will die on the hill that they are the best thing to come out of Teen Titans Go. But yeah, Thundercats Roar is honestly better than Teen Titans Go, all things considered.
Yep. I definitely can see that, because at least it's not lasted for like 5, 6, 7 years of that. But yeah, no, I definitely can see you there. So, what is your favorite 80s fantasy cartoon, Angron?
Technically, I'm gonna cheat a little bit with this one, but
Go ahead.
I'm absolutely gonna pull the Wuzzles card here, because this is basically the show that got Disney Channel started, and basically it had. For those of you saying it's not fantasy, there's a moment where there is a legit witch who casts spells and has potions, all that junk. So I basically count this as fantasy, if not a little bit unconventional. But if you want to go conventional, I might honestly have to say Thundercats as well. It's what I grew up with, mainly the 2011 version, but I did watch the original version, and I absolutely like it as well.
Yeah, I definitely can see it. But for my thing, I definitely have to admit that, for my opinion, I have to say that Wuzzles does count. I will say that much. Wuzzles definitely does count for the purposes of the fantasy thing. So go ahead and talk about it. All you want.
Yes. Yeah, Hoppo, I will die on the hill. She is awesome. The characters are amazing. Like, good lordy, this show deserved a lot more than what we got. Like, they introduced a new character, and I was hyped to see what they did with them. But unfortunately, 13 episodes is sadly the cap, which sucks. But whatever.
Yeah, unfortunately, I wish it lasted longer too. But I guess Gummy Bears could also count for the intents and purposes. That's also 80s fantasy, and that also is great. But yeah, I definitely can see why basically these shows click so much with that, because again, they have such a more realism to them that, again, I'm not saying that it's better than today, because today we have stuff like you could never dream of back then, but this is where it got the ball rolling. Let's say it that way. It's like, without this, would that actually exist,
Yeah, without this, we wouldn't have Mighty Ducks, we wouldn't have Gargoyles, we wouldn't have Gummy Bears, let's be honest, DuckTales, Chip and Dale, any of that.
None of that. Absolutely none of that. Maybe not even like Gravity Falls or any of that stuff, or Adventure Time without this stuff.
Yes.
Yep. So anyway, let's see. Matt, what would your pick be?
Man, this is a question geared specifically for me. What's a really great fantasy 80s animated series? You asked the animation guy that grew up in this era.
Let me guess. Nice. Thundercats?
How did you know? Yeah, from everything I've said on this series, if you didn't get Thundercats at this point, you just aren't listening. Thundercats is one of my favorite series of all time. I've talked about it to death, so one of the things I'm going to talk about is my favorite aspects that doesn't get talked about that much. Ra is one of the greatest villains of all time, not just of 80s, but of all time.
Yeah, he's
He
pretty
was so
cool.
imposing. He had such a great voice to him. The voice actor is amazing for Mum-Ra. Even in the 2011 version, they still tried to do a good Mum-Ra, but it just does not beat the OG. And just the show was made all the better because of such a good character like him.
Okay, hot take. I also very much love the Patrick Sates version they did for Thundercats 4. Like, it's goofy, and yet it also still shows off his menacing aspect for it. Like, he's sometimes a chill guy, but I very much love that version to death, to be honest. Like, I will die
Well,
to
I'm
help.
not saying it's
Oh,
I'm not saying it's bad. Don't get me wrong. It's just that to me, the OG will always be the top one. Just that deep, menacing, gravel chewing voice.
yeah, I feel
So
that.
good.
And Patrick Sates very much nails that in Thundercats 4, hands down.
And then the other aspect I wanted to bring up is the studio that made Thundercats, because Rankin Bass is sort of a co-producer slash distributor. They aren't actually the ones that make the stuff
Oh, my apologies.
for the
Oh, good.
anime style things. They are really great at finding talent. I will never give Rankin Bass that. They are one of the best studios at finding animation companies to work with. When they aren't doing their own stop motion, which is more stop than motion, but I digress.
Yeah.
The studio they went with is Pacific Animation, which was an offshoot of the previous company they worked with, Topcraft. Topcraft broke into that studio and Ghibli.
Wow.
And to
Nice.
explain how good Pacific Animation itself still was, they are the studio that became Disney Japan.
Wow.
That is cool.
That is awesome.
That's awesome.
So, like I said, when Rankin Bass are good at finding talent, I mean it. They are really good at finding talent.
Oh,
Yes.
100%. That is amazing. Like you say, how basically again they just had such amazing, like you say, a studio like that working on it. That again shows just how talented they were with it.
It's almost like they have future vision.
That too. That too. So let's see, Shark. What would your pick be for your favorite '80s fantasy cartoon?
Yeah, this one a kind of complicated one because I don't remember seeing much of them back in my youth, and even today, the thing there is one I do remember kind of not like being obsessed with, but when I will see it on TV, I will just like watch it because I thought it was fun, and it will be one that I'm actually surprised that no one has mentioned it. It will be He-Man, Masters
That's
of the
cool.
Universe.
Nice.
That's more something my stepdad will be interested in. I didn't exactly grow up with He-Man. I don't think it's bad, but it's
Yeah.
not exactly Thundercats, let's be honest.
Again, it wasn't a show that was like oh yeah, this is great. Oh, I have to. It was a show that was like, oh, this is cool. I like it. It's entertaining enough.
Nice.
Of
I can
course,
see that.
Skeletor of all character.
Yeah.
I feel that.
Yep, he's a legend. He's an absolute legend for a reason.
Yep, and of course, I have the power was always like hype moment in the show. And wow. But yeah,
Skeletor
like
running.
a show that will
You're
be like,
both-
oh yeah, I have the power. It's like oh, I enjoy watching this. This is a cool show. So yep, He-Man.
Yeah.
That's a great choice right there.
Another She-Ra, which I enjoyed a little bit more because of the Netflix show that they aired fairly recently. But yeah,
Oh yeah, She-Ra was pretty good.
I could definitely see
She-Ra.
that. Yep, sure. I could definitely see that. So let's see, Striker. What would yours be?
Oh wow, I wonder what I'm going to choose. Thundercats.
Eh,
Wow, kind of.
Obviously.
God, where do I even start? I actually have the first DVD set in my room here, and wow, actually watching like the first watching the first few episodes, like I was actually hooked. I thought it was really good.
Yeah.
I still have yet to go back to reading it, but like it's pretty good.
Yeah, I definitely have to agree with you there because again, it's kind of interesting how like unanimous we were with a lot of this stuff because I think what it is, a lot of it is stuff that just holds up in ways that again, it doesn't hold up in like every aspect. There are stuff to laugh at, there are stuff to point out. Even with this episode, there was, but
Oh
it
yeah,
is fascinating.
it's certainly goofy at times, but it's actually like it still really holds up in with most episodes.
Yeah, exactly. And then that's fascinating too is how the basically 80s fantasy as a whole was because I'm trying to think who said it, but it's like they had like a huge aspiration, but they never had the budgets for it. Like stuff like Dragon Slayer, which we will discuss in the future. Hint, hint. That'll be interesting when we eventually
Nice.
get to that one. There's Willow, which is just bizarre in all the weird ways in that. Can't discuss that because the dragon that's male, unfortunately. And yeah, even like stuff like Legend or the one with like Matthew Broderick and that, it's like they had such high hopes, but it's like none of them really clicked. Even like Princess Bride, it didn't do that big at the box office, unfortunately, you know?
Hmm.
It's like I don't think there was an audience for like fantasy stories in that until Lord of the Rings. And unfortunately, we can't talk really about Middle Earth on this podcast because nothing
No,
there.
this
But
is Middle Zealand.
yep, that too.
Middle Zealand.
Yeah, but still, just really fascinating stuff. But now it is time for the patent pending Dragoness Scale, and today's going to be a unique one because we're not ranking one Dragoness, we are ranking two. And I'll go first with my rankings for both Amber and Queen Casimira. And my ranking for Amber is probably going to be the same ranking I'm going to give for Queen Casimira, but it's going to be 9 out of 10 for both of them. I know it sounds harsh after all the gushing basically I've given to all of them, but I really don't know why I can't give them a 10. It's one of those things, again, that something's holding it back. Like, something is just tiny, a little bit thing that just, I cannot push myself to a 10. And again, it's one of those things that's like, maybe it's a me thing because, again, their voices are great, the designs are great. Yeah, Queen Casimir has a little bit of weirdness into her now that I think about it, but still, she looks really good. And I feel, again, for one-off characters from a 22-minute episode, they give them so much character that really makes you think that, oh yeah, they are one-off characters when they all leave basically their own realm in that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, I really was fooled when I first saw this into thinking, oh, Amber's going to stay behind and become one of the party in that and they'll have adventures. But then I looked it up and I saw this is the second to last episode and I was like, whoa, wait a minute, you know? Again, the writing on them is so good and their backstory, yes, is simplistic, but it's fun enough. And they're, again, as I'm probably beating a dead horse here, but they're adorable and they're cute without being cloyingly adorable or cloyingly cute, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I get it.
Yep.
It's more of a realistic thing. And again, I really would love to give them a perfect score, and just something about it, I just cannot give it to them. Maybe if they were like, maybe if it ended differently, or maybe if they had more of, I don't know, if we got a little bit more screen time with them, but we still get a lot of stuff with them. So, yeah, I'm going to definitely give them a 9, but it's like, it's a 9, but it's a 9.99999 to infinity and all. You know, it's like just a tiny skinch above a 10, or below a 10, rather. It's just almost there. I cannot push them over the line, but it's as close as you can get, basically. So,
Indeed.
Anquan, what would you rank both Amber and Queen Casimira, sorry.
I'm not gonna lie, I kind of share your opinions, albeit I'll give Tasmira an 8 out of 10. Like, she's definitely not the worst character I've seen. It's honestly the lips that hold her back the most. That she doesn't do a whole lot compared to Amber for the most part. But I will admit that they're both adorable. They both really help the party in this, and holy cow, I absolutely enjoyed that little bit where they go to the human realm.
Yeah,
So,
even though it was an accident, it was a happy accident, let's put it that way.
yep, good old
So-
happy accident leading to something pretty great.
Yep. So, what are you going to rank Amber?
Amber's a 9. Tasmira's an 8.
Okay. Let me just write that down. Okay. Let's see. Math, what would you give them?
Actually, spot on with Angron on this one.
Wow.
Nice.
Okay.
I really like their designs, save for one thing. This is what docks each of them a point. Those lips. I'm also with Angron on this one. Just it's what I said about Dulcie. It's the turtle lips from the live action TMNT movies. It does not look right. It just looks kind of off putting.
You want to mess with me?
I really do what?
Sorry. Huh? You want to mess with me? You want to mess with these lips?
Yeah.
Markiplier
That's
reference.
Anyway, sorry. Go ahead, Ingron. Continue. Math, rather. Continue.
But yeah, other than that, they have fantastic designs, and for this being an 80s show, which were predominantly built around either selling a product or a toy, I'm amazed no one ever made plushies of these.
Yeah, I am too. That is really, really surprising.
I agree.
For Amber, she is she's higher than Queen Casmira because I really liked the relationship with her and Presto, and I did want her to become sort of a mainstay, and if not Presto's familiar, just a really good friend with Presto. Queen Casmira, I feel, had just a little bit less screen time and just wasn't quite as much of a character as Amber. Again, I'm kind of biased because I really, really like that Presto and Amber relationship.
I agree.
But otherwise, they are both really great characters.
I ship them so hard.
Same. But yeah, no, that's definitely pretty much in unison here. Let's see. Striker, what would you give them?
I'll give them a 9 out of 10, to be honest.
Okay, so both of them then.
Yeah. Nothing really specific. I thought the designs were really good, and they were fun characters.
Nice.
Nice. And let's see here. Shark, what would you give them?
Okay, pick your Fiery Discourse bingo card, and you can cross Shark thinks exactly the same thing as Matt does. Because
Nice. We already got Hoppo reference, so might as well.
The same. 8 for the Queen, 9 for Amber. It's the leaves with the Queen and the fact that she doesn't have too much to do compared to Amber, at least. Amber is cute. I like the relationship with Presto. And of course, I could have seen her becoming a mainstay had she been in an earlier episode. So, yep.
Like I say, pretty interesting how we were pretty much unanimous here. Like, we either gave him like a 9 out of 10 or an 8 out of 10 for Queen Casmira and a 9 for Amber. Like I say, sadly, so that means that Tiamat is still the Dungeons and Dragons 80s queen when it comes to the Dragoness Scale, but it can't have everything.
Yeah.
Only reason is that they need more episodes.
That too. Yeah, unfortunately, we did not get any more episodes with these girls, so, well, what can you do? But that's going to be it for this week. If you have any questions, or you want to tell us what you think the Fairy Dragons would end up doing in our world...
If only.
If only everything would be better if they were here. You can feel free to email us at fierydiscourse@outlook.com. Visit us on Twitter at twitter.com/fierydiscourse. Be sure to subscribe to the Fiery Discourse YouTube channel and subscribe to the playlist. Hit the bell icon. Also visit us on Blue Sky at Fiery Discourse. Also, one of our co-hosts, Lucky Evie, is looking to move to a group home in the UK. There'll be a GoFundMe in the description. Any and all help is appreciated. Next week is going to be a very interesting one because we're going to be talking about the 2022 DC comic book, The Jurassic League. That's right. We're not talking about a movie. We're not talking about a TV show. We're not talking about a video game or a theme park ride. We are talking about a different kind of piece of visual media, one where you actually have to read it.
Yeah, your magic guns.
But we'll also be talking about books sometimes too. But yeah, it'll be interesting definitely to talk about this one because, again, like the Wario Land episode, it might be a little more disjointed, but that'll be part of its charm.
Purchase your magic guns where you can, because we're going to top the fourth wall, though. Really, second one.
Well, we'll probably do it. Well, we won't be anything like Linkara, because we won't take 50 hours to get through it. But that'll be it for this week. And until next time, thank you all for watching, and take care.
Bye bye.
Yep.
Adios.
Laters.
Adios.
Peace out.
See you next week for Jurassic League.